You are listening to the Air Raid Hour with host Judge Mathis, dog, Tilt Money, dog, presented by the fine folks over at the Cover One Sports Network, dogs. Bills Mafia, let's go!
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour Cover One pregame show. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. Together, we are the Bills Guys. You can find us on Twitter at the Bills Guys. And this show is presented by Cover One and Picasso's Pizza. Before we get rolling today, Dave, the Bills are looking to go 7-1 for the first time since 1993. They are currently the only division leader without a division win. To accomplish both of these things today, they're going to need to beat the 5-3 New York Jets. It's the first time these teams meet where both teams have a winning record since 2011. What are your initial thoughts and feelings as we settle back into this Sunday 1 p.m. window?
Yeah, the schedule over this year for the Bills was quite interesting, right? The first half of the schedule was very much heavy with what we thought were going to be pretty challenging games in the sense of we were, getting the Packers, we were getting the defending Super Bowl champs, teams like the Ravens, teams like the Chiefs and Titans. And then kind of the second half of the schedule is where we really saw the divisional games outside of that, one-off Miami game we had early in the season. But really the second half of this schedule was much more loaded with the divisional games. Which is interesting because this is the latest the Bills have played the Jets for the first time since 2018. And we know for many years, the Bills opened, like for what seemed like 4 or 5 years, maybe not in a row, but like 4 out of 5 years or 5 out of 6 years, they opened with the Jets in a lot of seasons. So interesting that playing the Jets this late for the first time in the season. Interesting that the Jets are have a winning record. We're going to get into that. But look, I mean, a lot of division games ahead, and the Bills are going to have to win those games. I'm not saying they can't win the division without winning, most of those games. But it is important that the Bills kind of do get a division win today and just kind of start that ball rolling as we head towards the second half of the schedule.
Yeah, comment section already popping. Thank you guys so much for being in here. Always appreciate you guys. If you could do us a favor and just simply smash that like button, that would really help us out with the algorithm. And if you know anyone who might enjoy this show, just click that little copy button, send them a text, let them know where they can get some Buffalo Bills, New York Jets pregame talk in. We already got Bandito coming in saying Terrell Bernard, time to shine. Connor C saying over under Bernard, 3.5 sacks. We're going to get a little bit more in depth with Terrell Bernard in a moment, but let's first go through these inactive lists. For the New York Jets, nothing too notable. Joe Flacco has been demoted to third string quarterback behind Mike White. He is inactive. Safety Tony Adams, running back and NC State grad Bam Knight is inactive. Bills pre-draft favorite Bryce Hall is inactive. Cornerback Bryce Hall. Corey Davis still battling his way back from an injury is inactive. And Jeremy Ruckert, notable for saying the Buffalo Bills were the only team in New York during the combine who now ironically plays for the New York Jets, is also inactive today. All of that means that James Robinson will be active to spell Michael Carter in the backfield today for the Jets. So nothing really too notable, and we'll touch on a few of those things as we go along. But for the Buffalo Bills, down 4 starters heading into this football game. Spencer Brown inactive for the second game in a row. With his ankle injury. David Quessenberry will start in his place. Matt Milano is out with an oblique injury. It'll likely mean the debut of Terrell Bernard at weak side linebacker, or strong side linebacker. That's what the Bills call it in that defense. Jordan Poyer is inactive. We're still waiting the status and the longevity of that injury for Jordan Poyer. So that likely means Jaquan Johnson will start, but we might see some Dean Marlowe, who we acquired at the trade deadline, mixed in. Trey White is inactive. We'll talk about that one in a moment. And Tommy Sweeney is inactive as well. Let's start with Trey White. I personally have no problems with him being inactive this week. I know it's tempting to maybe get him some run against Zach Wilson in a team that doesn't throw as heavily as the New York Jets, but that MetLife turf scares the living hell out of me. And we've seen multiple players ask Ike Bucker how much he appreciates the MetLife turf. What are your thoughts on Trey White not being active for this football game?
I'm totally supportive of it, right? I mean, I think that the Bills need to play the long game here, and they need to play the long game with Trey White. And look, at this point, he's not even quite a year removed from that injury. It was Thanksgiving last year. So the Bills have the ability to be cautious here in combination with the turf, in combination with the team you're playing against. I think, you and I talked about this. I talked about this with Hansel, like maybe getting Trey White back and ready to roll for that Vikings game a week from now, which is going to be looks like a pretty big game. Vikings are rolling right now. That's going to be a big game against Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. I'm fine to keep Trey White out another week. And I think it's a smart move. If you're the Bills, don't put him on that turf. Give him another week. He's been practicing, obviously, which is great. And so the Bills are fine right now to kind of keep him inactive. It also speaks to the volumes of how well the guys that have played in his stead have fared with guys like Benford, Elam, Dane Jackson, in combination with the fact that Corey Davis, like you mentioned, is still out, and he was really their big down the field threat. I know Garrett Wilson can too, but the Jets are fairly thin at receiver. I mean, as Randy put in the comments section, maybe this is the week they start getting Elijah Moore back in the mix, but really Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore with Tyler Conklin are really the guys that you look at and you're like, this team is down from a weapon standpoint, and I am all for giving Trey another week and not putting him out on that turf.
Yeah, looking at it, Spencer Brown, like I said, is going to be replaced by David Quessenberry, the journeyman swing tackle who played pretty well last week. Matt Milano is going to be missing his first game. That means the likely debut of Terrell Bernard. Let's speak on that a little bit. The Buffalo Bills used a third-round pick on Terrell Bernard. It took us all by surprise. We started seeing this guy's not a middle linebacker. This shouldn't have anything to do with the future of Tremaine Edmonds. What were they doing using this pick on a player like Bernard if he's not going to play? But the linebacking position is important to the Buffalo Bills. Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds have missed games in the past. And again, they've missed games this year with Tremaine Edmonds already missing a game and now Matt Milano missing a game. So now this third round pick that they utilized at a very important position to their defense is going to make his debut today. Some fun stats for Terrell Bernard. Let me scroll down my notes here a little bit. The last game he started, the last regular season game he started in college was the Sugar Bowl against Ole Miss, where he had 17 total tackles, 2 sacks, and a pass defense. So Terrell Bernard is definitely eager to get back out there on the football field. What are your thoughts on him filling the void left by Matt Milano today?
Well, in retrospect, you can look at it and say it was maybe an insurance investment, although it was a high draft pick. I mean, AJ Klein, for those years he was here, he did play a pivotal role in the defense when called upon, right? Whether it was via injury or otherwise. So although Terrell Bernard is not really the same physical prototype as an AJ Klein, we did see AJ Klein at his best when he was getting into the backfield and in spots kind of getting to the passer and kind of making those plays where he was able to kind of move downhill as opposed to kind of having to go backwards, right? Though that's the type of player that we had with AJ Klein. And I think Terrell Bernard is a more athletically gifted player than AJ Klein. And I think you will see a nice debut from him. So I know we spent some time kind of questioning the pick and kind of wrapping our minds around it, but the importance to the defense that this linebacker group has, knowing they play predominantly 2 linebackers, if one of those guys goes out, you really need to have a third guy that can be strong. And I do believe that Terrell Bernard is in a position today where he's being thrust in the starting lineup in a game where his strengths can be magnified. And so that's why we see some question about, well, why isn't Tyrell Dodson coming in? Well, in this game, knowing how bad Zach Wilson is under pressure, and we'll get to that, it really feels like this is a really nice spot for a guy like Bernard to get his first start.
Yeah, and Pops Mafia comes in and says, will Dotson see some more playing time too? Possibly. We're going off reports this morning from Mike Garafolo and Ian Rappaport, who both said it's expected that Terrell Bernard is going to make his first career start today. But if Bernard falters, possibly Tyrell Dotson goes in. Who knows? Maybe Tyrell Dotson gets worked in. But, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. This is a game that might be susceptible to his strengths. Chris Kepner comes in and says, over-under sacks today, 0.5. What do you take? I would honestly probably take the over. because I think the Buffalo Bills are going to want to pressure Zach Wilson. They're going to prefer to pressure him with 4 guys, but they might use those A-gap blitzes. They might send linebackers, and Bernard might be the guy they decide to send at him. Like I said, in that Sugar Bowl last year, he had 2 sacks. He was known in college for being someone who can get to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's just be real. Zach Wilson is not a good quarterback. Zach Wilson is not the answer in New York. They are winning to spite that quarterback or despite that quarterback. So they're going to try to get the ball into James Robinson's hands, Michael Carter's hands, and they're going to try to run the ball. Terrell Bernard is going to be a key cog. He's not the only cog, but he's going to be a key cog in trying to stop that. They're going to try to get the ball into the hands of Braxton Berrios, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Michael Carter at or around the line of scrimmage and let them create yak. And Terrell Bernard is going to be really important going sideline to sideline and trying to shut down that as well. And on top of Terrell Bernard being really important to both of those things, Jaquan Johnson is going to be very key to both of those things as well. He is likely to get the start in place of Jordan Poyer. Do we think that he goes coast to coast, or do we see some Dean Marlowe mixed in?
I think you will see some Marlowe. I do. And the only reason I say that is because I think the Bills, obviously, they made the trade. They gave a draft pick. I know it was a 7th-round pick. Marlowe is very familiar with the system. It hasn't changed since he left. It's still Leslie Frazier. He was here under Leslie Frazier, obviously. And I do think that it's a chance for him to get some reps in a situation where moving forward, they might want to take a look at that position and say, maybe this becomes a bit of a competition this following week, right? As we head into like the Vikings game and beyond. I do think Jaquan Johnson's probably earned that right of first warrant there as far as him getting the first crack at it. But I would not mind seeing Marlowe get some snaps, and right, for the same reasons that we thought would be a positive for Trey White to play in this game, right? Getting some snaps against potentially an underwhelming unit. Marlowe, same type of thing, right? So I do think it'll be Jaquan Johnson for the beginning of the game, and we'll see if he plays well. It could be for him for most of the game, but I do think the Bills would want to work Marlowe in a bit in this game.
Yeah, Randy Harvin comes in with a great comment. He says those running backs are not Breece Hall. They have to replace those big plays that Hall generated. That's how they were winning, and obviously they don't have that today. Pops Mafia comes in and says Bernard is Milano's backup, Donson is Edmonds' backup, Hamlin is Hyde's backup, and Johnson is Poyer's backup. It appears to be that way. Big time Diggs comes in and said, I thought James Robinson was out for this game. The report last night was he was changed from no designation to questionable with a knee injury, but he worked it out pregame and he is active and will be playing in this game. How much he plays, how effective he is on that knee, who knows, but he will be playing in this game. My guess is Michael Carter and Ty Johnson will be getting a good chunk of carries as well. David R comes in and says, join late, Christian Benford to safety. This is a more interesting conversation to have, maybe not in a pregame show, but in another setting. But once Trey White does get back and he does get acclimated, that is Trey White, that is Dane Jackson, that is Kyer Elam, that is Christian Benford. That is 4 very solid cornerbacks for a team that usually only plays 3, with the third being Taron Johnson. So it's nice to have that depth, but a guy like Christian Benford, even when he was drafted, and with his ability that we've already seen to sort of run fit, he looks like somebody who could project to safety. So the sooner you can maybe start cross-training him, the better. He could be a valuable depth piece at safety heading into the playoffs, and he could be a valuable piece heading into the future with Micah Hyde's future in doubt and Jordan Poyer being an unrestricted free agent this year. So I think Christian Benford might eventually get switched to safety with all the depth at corner, but I don't know if that's a conversation we want to have right now, Dave.
Well, and we talked about this all during the summer too, right? With guys like Nick McLeod and Christian Benford, and like, it's a nice idea, but like in reality, we really haven't seen the Bills execute on that all too much when it comes to where these guys are playing in practice and where they're playing in the game. So I think physically and sort of characteristically, it could make sense given the lack of numbers at safety right now and the kind of depth there at corner. But until the Bills actually show that, whether it's in practice or otherwise, and obviously they just brought in Marlowe, I don't know, man. I think for now they're going to be comfortable just knowing they have that great depth at corner.
All right. Before we start heading in talking about the more specific offensive versus defensive type of matchups, this show is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza. 4 great locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Buffalo Pizza since 1980. That hand-cut cup and char pepperonis you can order online at picassospizza.net. And if you're an out-of-towner like us, you can even get it mailed to you at your home. And I can tell you, and Dave can tell you from experience, it's just as good as getting it fresh from the restaurant. Again, that is picassospizza.net. All right, let's head into it now, and let's start off with the Buffalo Bills defense versus this New York Jets offense led by Zach Wilson. They've got Michael Carter, who's probably going to be starting at running back. He's a versatile type of pass catching back. They're going to be working James Robinson and Ty Johnson in. Garrett Wilson is a very, very good wide receiver. And if he had a better quarterback, he'd probably be putting up better numbers than Chris Olave, who's blowing up in New Orleans right now. Like, Garrett Wilson is legit good. He's a scary receiver. And I don't look forward to the New York Jets figuring out the quarterback position. Denzel Mims starting in place of Corey Davis. And then you'll see Braxton Berrios worked in the slot. And then maybe Elijah Moore finally works his way out of the doghouse today. We'll see. I hope not, because he's a very good player. And I hope he stays off the field. At tight end, they've definitely improved that position this year with Ty Conklin and CJ Uzama. Their numbers aren't eye-popping, but they're certainly better than what the New York Jets have produced at the position before. And then left to right along the offensive line, it's Dwayne Brown, who was questionable coming into this game, Laken Tomlinson, Connor McGovern, Nate Herbig, who is in for Elijah Vera Tucker, who's out for the year, who is also questionable for this game, so he's hurting a little bit. And then Agbui at right tackle. So the New York Jets, some really good skill positions, a little bit questionable up front, and really, really shaky at the quarterback position is essentially how I would summarize that offensive depth chart. But before we get into the specific players, this is 2 weeks in a row we're getting a LaFleur calling plays against the Buffalo Bills. Last week we had Matt. This week we have Mike. I wonder if they maybe talked a little bit this week about what went well and what didn't go well in that Sunday Night Football game. But at the end of the day, it's Leslie Frazier versus Mike LaFleur, and I'm taking Leslie Frazier every single time in that matchup. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I'm taking Leslie Frazier, and I'm not doubting at all that those two had a conversation. And the Bills, look, before we get into the specific players, obviously the Jets have an overall decent depth of talent at the skill positions. Obviously, Breece Hall not being there is huge, and Corey Davis. But like, there are some, I hate to use the phrase sleeping giants, but there are some untapped potential there, right? You have some untapped potential there with Elijah Moore. You do have some untapped potential there. We saw it a little bit last week with Garrett Wilson, as far as him breaking out a bit, getting over 100 yards. But ultimately, it's going to come down to that offensive line. If they can protect Zach Wilson, and we know based on a lot of the advanced analytics that Zach Wilson is really bad under pressure. So give me Leslie Frazier in this situation every time. I just trust him a lot more in this situation than I would LaFleur.
Yeah, Charles G comes in and says the Jets have to run the ball to have a puncher's chance, right? Yeah, I would assume so. I think they're going to have a really difficult time passing the ball on this Buffalo Bills defense. Pops Mafia comes in and says, got to get pressure on Wilson. He makes dumb decisions. A great statistic from Joe Biscaglia today when he did his typical little, live shot from the stadium. I'm not sure where he got this statistic from, but I trust Joe B when it comes to finding statistics. He says Zach Wilson, when pressured and holding the ball for 2.5 seconds or longer without being blitzed, has a 22% completion percentage and has thrown multiple interceptions this year. I mean, that's absolutely huge because field position can be vital in this game if Zach Wilson turns the ball over. And this Buffalo Bills defensive line should be able to bully this New York Jets offensive line without blitzing too many people. They might send Bernard or they might send a safety on the occasional blitz, but they should be able to create that pressure in which Zach Wilson has held onto the ball, completed 22% of his passes, and thrown multiple interceptions. So what are your thoughts on Wilson and how to defend him, and this Jets offense?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was teasing some stats on Twitter a little bit before the show about his completion percentage under pressure is like 18.6. You see Jose de Bills Mafia putting that in there as well. He's not good under pressure. I think in situations today, I'm not saying the Bills go ham and just like blitz every single time, because that's really not what they do. It's in fact the complete opposite of what they do. But in certain situations, I'd love to see the Bills do that. And the Jets, for to their credit, they're actually a pretty decent first down rushing team. They're 10th in DVOA when it comes to first down rushing. However, in third down or in overall passing
Mhm.
offense are 26th in DVOA, and in third down and third downs they are 29th uh, in third down percentage overall. So to me, this comes down to putting Zach Wilson, and you mentioned situations third and long, second and longs. If you're the Bills and you're stopping the run on first down, it should be a pretty successful day for your defense and putting Zach Wilson in those situations where just statistically he is not very good.
Yeah. I was trying to Google the Mike White game log because I can't remember how many picks he threw against the Bills last year, but someone said Zach Wilson gets benched today. The backup is Mike White, who didn't he have 5 picks versus the Bills
It was like,
last year
yeah, it was
in
like,
that first game. It
wasn't
was
it like
something like
45 to
that.
17 or something was the score? It was like, it
Yeah.
was bad. Yeah.
Mike White threw a ton of picks that game. I remember like heading into that game, everyone's like, "Oh my God, is Mike White better than Zach Wilson?" Did the Jets find their next like Tony Romo and Mike White, and then just the Bills destroyed all that? And Mike White like
Yes.
never saw a snap again
Yes.
the rest of the season. Bandito says, "I doubt the least blitzing team in the NFL starts blitzing Zach Wilson with both safeties out." I'm not saying they're going to blitz a ton, but I mean the Bills
A
still
little
do
bit.
blitz. They
A little
still
bit.
blitz. So whether it's like sending Bernard up an A gap or shooting Jaquan Johnson, like occasionally they're gonna do something a little bit different and throw a different wrinkle at Zach Wilson. So they will blitz, and it might only be like 5% of the time. And then we got Pete Nana coming in and says there's a Jets outlet that said Wilson has the 15th best EPA facing two high and 30th versus single high safety. That would be good for the Buffalo Bills because that would mean leaving a guy like Jaquan Johnson in the box to help defend the run. So that would be good for the Buffalo Bills if they can get away with those single high looks. We've already talked quite a bit about Bernard and Jaquan Johnson, so we're not going to speak on that again. But the Jets offense, they're relatively scary skill position wise. But for now, they do have Zach Wilson at quarterback, and we talked a little bit on Zach Wilson and the struggles versus the 4-man rush if it can be effective. Over under 14 points for the Jets today.
I'll say over, but it's probably going to be like 16, 17 points. We'll see in my game prediction. But I don't think them getting the over on that is going to be anything meaningful. Like, I think it's going to be late in the game. They might get something at the end to put them over. They maybe get 16, 17 points. But I could see them being right around that 14 number. They're averaging, I think, 19.9 points per game on the season. So even if they go a little over 14, I still could see them maybe being under their season average against this Bills defense. So I'll say over just because of some of the injuries that Bills have on the defense with some key guys being out, with Poyer and Milano both being out. But I don't think it's going to be much over.
I feel pretty confident taking the under here. I really do. In my game prediction, they're going to be scoring under 14 points. Now, is there an opportunity? Because remember the Bills always talk about there's that clip of John Butler on the sidelines. Like, I don't care about yards, I care about points. Like, is there a chance, like towards the end of the game, if the Bills take a lead, that like the Jets get some garbage time field goals or some garbage time touchdowns and get above the 13? Yeah, of course. But I think realistically during this football game, unless something shocking happens, again, Leslie Frazier versus Mike LaFleur, this Bills defensive front versus that Jets offensive line and Zach Wilson, I'm feeling pretty confident that the Buffalo Bills are going to hold the New York Jets to under 14 points. And the talk all week has been the Bills offense versus the Jets defense. When in reality, does it really matter? All the Bills offense has to do is score 2 touchdowns. And I think they'll have enough points to win this football game.
Yeah. I mean, obviously everyone wants to talk about that because obviously Sauce Gardner and the Jets defense has been pretty good this year. And obviously you naturally want to talk about Josh Allen and that Bills offense. But if the Bills defense just comes out and does what they've been doing all year and makes life miserable on this Jets offense, the Bills can, I don't want to use this word, but like they could struggle theoretically on offense and still, win fairly comfortably. And when I say comfortably, I mean like 2 scores, right? Or more. And so you're right. They don't have to do a ton. I do expect the Bills to have success on offense. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like a 45-point game or anything like that, like for the Bills specifically. But they are capable, right? And they're outside of that Mike White game. The Bills haven't been over 27 points against the Jets in their last, I think, 4 games outside of the Mike White game. So there have been a few games where they've kind of had a little bit of struggle against the Jets. But again, you look at it from the other side and you say, well, to look at that same discussion from the Jets' point of view, like, what is this Jets offense going to do against this Bills defense? The only thing they're really going to hang their hat on here is like, okay, Poyer and Milano are out. Let's see what we can do. But like, look at the rest of that Bills defense. It's still going to be a nightmare, I think, for Zach Wilson.
Yeah, Bandito comes in and says this is a big smash the under type of game because the game could end 33-12 and it would still hit the under. So, yeah, I think I would feel pretty confident betting the under in this football game. I might even go on there and do a little bit of a parlay where I take maybe the under, like the Bills money line, and I take I don't know. I don't know if I'm allowed to parlay this with those two things, but maybe just the Jets under as well. You know, parlay those things together. I've made about 7 or 8 bets this morning. I make like very confident $5 bets where you win like $4. So I've just been accumulating like every week. I've been accumulating like $5 a game, betting like so-and-so will rush over 25 yards and so-and-so will catch over 40 yards and passes. And I'll just parlay like 6 of those together. I made like $120 the last 3 weeks. So just betting those little baby bets. So I might go make a little baby bet for Bills Jets here. Since I have a baby I'm going to be paying for in a couple of months here. But let's transition now from Buffalo Bills offense to the New York Jets defense, because nobody wants to hear about my gambling problems. The New York Jets defensive line, their whole defense in general looks a lot better. John Franklin Myers, Sheldon Rankin, Quentin Williams, Carl Lawson looking good up front. They got guys like Jacob Martin, Vinny Curry, Bryce Huff, Michael Clemens, Nathan Shepard, and Solomon Thomas rotating in. Robert Saleh uses a lot of the similar rotations that the Buffalo Bills do. Mosley, Alexander, Williams are some pretty solid linebackers. Mosley's been playing really, really good this year. And then their DBs are solid. You got Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, who are very good at playing the boundary cornerback for the New York Jets this year. You got Michael Carter in the slot. You got Jordan Whitehead, LaMarcus Joyner, and Will Parks working in at safety. From NFL Next Gen Stats, this was shared on NFL Live this week. The New York Jets play the 4th highest rate of zone coverage. While playing zone coverage, the New York Jets defense is number 1 in opposing quarterback QBR, 3rd in yards per attempt, and 7th in touchdown to interception ratio. They are going up against Josh Allen, who against zone defenses this year is 1st in QBR, 3rd in yards per attempt, and 7th in the touchdown to interception ratio. So they're literally mirror images of each other. What Josh Allen does well against zone defenses, the New York Jets do equally well defending quarterbacks while playing zone defense. So it's a real measuring stick game here for the New York Jets. How do you think Josh Allen holds up against this reworked and relooked New York Jets defense?
It is strength on strength here, and I really do like this Jets defense, and I do think the Jets will be playing with some emotion today. We know Robert Saleh is an emotional guy. He obviously comes from the defensive side of the ball. I think that defense is going to be fired up. I think that if you're the Bills and Josh Allen, don't give them early success. And what I mean by that is don't go like 3 and out or have to punt on the first drive and fire that defense up, because I think that defense really could feed on emotion in the strength on strength situation. Until they give up that big play, I think they're going to be playing pretty well. And so if you're Josh Allen and this is your strength as well, you got to go out and just show like, I'm better than you. I'm the best player in the league. And it doesn't matter how good you are. I'm still going to make my plays. It was kind of like, we know the Rams aren't as good as we thought they might have been in week 1, but like we were talking about, like, what is the concern of like a guy like Stephon Diggs going up against Jalen Ramsey, and we kind of squash that, right? So like go out there and squash the narrative that the Jets are super good in zone situations, and just build upon your own narrative that you already have, that you're really, really good as a quarterback against this zone. Against this zone type of defense. And so I do like, I'm going to bet on Josh Allen in that situation, but don't be surprised. I would not be surprised if the Jets have a little bit of success early, as the Bills maybe are trying to figure some things out. And, but I do think eventually they will, and that eventually the strength of the Bills will overcome the strength of the Jets.
Yeah, we got Charles G coming in and says, what do you think Saleh tries to do to affect Josh Allen? I don't think he tries to do anything. I think Robert Saleh is going to do what Robert Saleh always does. 2 deep shell, zone coverage, try to pressure with only your defensive line. That's what he had success with in San Francisco. That's what he tried to bring to New York. There were games last year and even 2 years ago where the Bills were absolutely torching the New York Jets, and Robert Saleh refused to leave his defense, even though his personnel clearly couldn't run his defense. So he's not Steve Spagnuolo. He's not trying to trick you. He's not trying to, throw something different at you that you've never seen before. He's going to go out there and do what he does best. And now he finally does have the personnel to do what he does best. So I think that everything Josh Allen sees today is something that is something he's going to have seen before. I don't think Robert Saleh is going to throw something different at him today. He's just going to trust he's got better players to run that defense. So to me, one of the keys to this game, Allen threw 2 picks in the second half last week. Josh Allen cannot be turning the ball over in this football game, especially twice, because you cannot give the Jets short field and help them out with this bad offense.
You can't help them out, and that's exactly the formula for the Jets to try to kind of cover up some of their deficiencies on offense, right? Is keep this game close, force turnovers, try to get Josh to turn the ball over, give your offense as short of a field as possible, converting that to points, even if it's field goals early. But on the flip side, right, that also then energizes your defense, right, and shows if you're a defense and you're a good defense like the Jets, you can elevate yourself even a little bit higher, feeding off that emotion and feeding off that success against a really good quarterback. Can go a long way for this Jets defense, and that kind of permeates from Robert Saleh on down to each player. And so, that's what I'm saying. Don't let them have that early success. Take the emotional piece that the Jets could be riding high on out of the game as quickly as possible, so that doesn't become a factor.
Yeah, Andre DeSimone or DeSimone. Sorry if I mispronounced that there. This isn't exactly Bills offense versus Jets defense, but I think this is a great point, so I just want to touch on it real quick. He says he sees many trick plays from the Jets today. They want to beat us so bad. Yeah, I can see a lot of end arounds, things getting Braxton Berrios involved, things getting Elijah Moore involved, getting the balls in the hands of their playmakers on offense to try to generate chunk plays without relying on your quarterback to throw the ball down the field, because that hasn't been so successful. So that was just a really good point from him. Even though we sort of moved on from that topic a little bit, but big talk heading into this game is Stefon Diggs versus Sauce Gardner. Stefon Diggs is known to be an animated character. We saw it last week with Jair Alexander. Sauce Gardner is not backing down from everybody. He was very, very confident this week, and some people were hating on him for it and telling him to humble himself, etc. But I love Sauce Gardner, and I absolutely love the attitude he plays with, and I love the mindset he comes into each and every week, and that's why he's been one of the best rookies in football this year, and he's one of the front runners for defensive rookie of the year. I think he's already solidified himself as a top 10, 15 corner in this league, and he's only played in a handful of games. He is that good. So what is your thoughts with Stefon Diggs versus Sauce Gardner, the first of what is probably going to be a lot of mano-a-mano matchups here?
I think some Bills fans maybe are just a little bit in their feelings on that, because a lot of Bills fans like Sauce Gardner in the pre-draft process, and we're hoping that, maybe we'd find a way to get him. Obviously, it was a pipe dream because we were picking so late, but I love Sauce Gardner, and I think he is like the mirror image of Stefon Diggs on the defensive side of the ball right now. And I think maybe we're seeing a little bit of okay, this is what this looks like from the other perspective. And it's great for Sauce Gardner. And I think that's exactly what you need if you're the Jets. You need a little swagger. You need a guy with confidence, and it's not false confidence either. He's been playing really well. So he's backing it up with his play. And it's going to be a fun matchup to watch. Now, I will say this, he's still a rookie, and I think that there will be moments where Stefon Diggs wins this battle, and there may be moments where Sauce Gardner wins the battle. But at the end of the day, it's a war, and it's the team that comes out on top on the scoreboard that matters, as Stefon Diggs said in his press conference, right? He says, I just care about wins. And ultimately, that's what the Bills should care about, and they do care about. So, I think it's going to be a fun matchup to watch, but I don't necessarily know that it's something we need to be upset with Sauce Gardner about, right? He's doing what we would want our guys to do, right?
Yeah.
He's backing it up. So
and a lot of great comments from people in the comment section. Jessica Tennis, Charles G saying they just don't think that Sauce is going to travel with Diggs as much as we think. Like I said, Robert Saleh is stuck in his ways. 4th most zone defense in the league this year, the New York Jets run. You don't really shadow in a zone defense. it's usually typically man to man where you shadow a guy around. Now, Sauce Gardner's done a little bit of shadowing this year. Like week 1, I think he was covering Mark Andrews. So he's done a little bit of it, but not a lot of it. So, I mean, we even saw last week where, Stephon Diggs put up 100 plus yards and a touchdown, but he was 0 for 4 against Jair Alexander, mano a mano, because he was just never lined up against Jair Alexander. He did all of his work versus Rasul Douglas. So, it's fun to talk about pregame, but in reality, maybe we don't see too much of it. And Randy Hartman comes up with a great one that Diggs has been breaking brackets this year. Last year in the Kansas City playoff game, not so much. But then Gabriel Davis stepped up, and Gabriel Davis was able to have a big game because of that Stephon Diggs being bracketed. But this year, it's really been tough to shut down Stephon Diggs, no matter how you try to defend him. So he should be able to still get his numbers in. I went back and I looked at the 2020 box score, the last time the Buffalo Bills played Robert Saleh when he had a decent defense. And that was, when he has Fred Warner, he had, Buckner and all those guys up front in San Francisco 2 years ago. So Allen's last game against Robert Saleh's defense in 2020, they were playing in Glendale, 10 minutes down the road for me. I couldn't go because of COVID. The stadium was empty. There was forest fires in San Francisco. Josh Allen went 32 of 40 for 375 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. He had a really good day against Robert Saleh. He typically has good days against Robert Saleh. Diggs went 10 for 92. Gabriel Davis went 3 for 68 and a touchdown. But it was Cole Beasley who stole the show with 9 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown. Working the slot is something that the Buffalo Bills are probably going to have to do today. DVOA wise, the Jets are top 10 on number 1 and number 2 receivers. In the slot, I think they're like 19th or something like that. I forgot to write it down, but off the top of my head, I believe they're 19th. Is this the week that the Bills' lack of a go-to slot receiver finally maybe like bites them a little bit, because the dropping back into that 2 deep shell, dropping back linebackers, etc. There's a lot of guys covering a lot of ground. Is this the week that a lack of a slot receiver hurts us?
I don't know if it hurts us, but I think it gives an excellent opportunity for a guy like Khalil Shakir, a guy like Isaiah McKenzie, and maybe Nyheim Hines can work in a little bit as well. We saw the Bills in practice having him line up at receiver a few times and doing some interesting things. Now, I know he's new to this team, but you can put in a couple plays for a guy like Nyheim Hines. And I do think it's Khalil Shakir season, right? I mean, I think if you are the Bills and you're talking about like historically, and I could have this mixed up, but I believe, right, zone versus man, Shakir's the guy you're going to want in that situation over a guy like Isaiah McKenzie. So I agree with Charles G. Shakir's season is for me. I want him to get those reps. I would like to see Hines mixed in. Knox is a good one as well, says Chris, and I think Knox could have a big day as well, but I'm not going to go as far to say as it bites the Bills, because I'm going to look at it from it presenting an opportunity for a guy like Shakir to maybe quiet the Odell Beckham talk a bit, maybe give himself an upper leg in the battle between him and McKenzie playing out of that slot position. And I know some people are getting a little bit frustrated with McKenzie's inconsistencies, but we also haven't really seen what Shakir could do when given most of the opportunities. So I would like to see it. I think it's an opportunity. And if it does come back and bite them, I believe it's just going to be because of the fact that there's just not consistency there. But I would like to think that our guys, especially Khalil Shakir, is ready to step up and kind of prove that, hey, I'm the guy that you expected you were going to get when you drafted me.
Yeah. And I want to talk about Nyheim Hines in a second, because Hines, who will likely be returning punts today, takes some of the pressure off of Khalil Shakir, as mentioned in the comment section. And Nyheim Hines could even play a role in the slot, but we'll get to that in a second. But a really good comment here from Randy Hartman. He says, I anticipate Josh under duress today, so the fire drill and wide receiver cohesiveness will be important. I don't disagree with that, because if you look at this, like last year when the Buffalo Bills got into trouble, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cam Hayward taking over the game. It was the Tennessee Titans and Jeffrey Simmons taking over the game. It was the Jacksonville Jaguars wreaking havoc on us because they were bullying our offensive line. Our offensive line is going to have a huge impact on today's game. Guys like Quinnen Williams, guys like Carl Lawson are game-breaking talents along the defensive line. What are your thoughts on what the Buffalo Bills have to do today up front in order for the Buffalo Bills offense to stay in rhythm and to score enough points to beat this Jets team?
Well, I think the Bills kind of have to do what a lot of teams try to do against them, and that's get the ball out quickly. I'd like to see the Bills try to get the ball out quickly. That's why I'd like to see guys like Hines get involved in the game plan, guys like Knox and Shakir, where you can get these guys the ball quickly, maybe a few, screens to wide receivers, right? Getting the ball out of Josh's hands quickly, getting it in Diggs and Davis' hand, letting them kind of work after the catch. So for me, I'd like to see some of that kind of take away some of the fire from that Jets defensive line. And again, like we talked about with the corners, potentially making big plays and giving an emotional uplift. A big sack early in the game, a big fumble like we saw Miami get against the Bills deep in their own zone early in the game is something you want to avoid, right? If you're the Bills. And the way you can avoid that early is getting the ball out quickly, making quick decisions, and being smart with the football early. So I like it to be a situation early where maybe you don't see Josh holding on the ball. You don't see these long dropbacks. And as Randy says, if it's a fire drill situation, the Jets playing zone, they might have some guys looking at Josh, not saying that he can be stopped, but I think quick passing game is kind of something that I'm going to be keeping my eye on to see if that's something the Bills go to early.
Yeah, Pete Nana comes in here and says, for what it's worth, Hines is PFF's number 2 receiving back since entering the league. Christian McCaffrey is number 1. And that's something I want. We're 41 minutes into this. I don't even think we've really mentioned Nyheim Hines yet, which is crazy because we haven't had a chance to talk about him since the Buffalo Bills had him at the deadline. But I look at Nyheim Hines, and as a fan, I would love for the Buffalo Bills in their first 10 scripted plays. That first series is always scripted and everyone's really comfortable and it's planned. I would love to just see Nyheim come out as the RB1 in the first 10 scripted plays and just get the ball rolling, get a nice, jump start here as Buffalo Bills career. In actuality, I think you're probably going to see him returning punts and probably get about 3 to 5 touches on offense today. I mean, maybe not even touches, like 3 to 5 snaps on offense today. Where do you think that Nyheim Hines fits in so early in his tenure here at the Buffalo Bills? And Jessica Tennis coming in and saying Tilt's going to love him because he's from North Carolina State.
Man, we had a fun offense there when we had Jalen Samuels and Nyheim Hines in the same offense with Ryan Finley. I'll just say that. But anyway, I digress. I think punt returns for sure. He has done kick returns extensively in college, not so much in the pros, but he's comfortable with that if they decide they want to do that. It wouldn't surprise me if we still see McKenzie doing kick returns, but Hines back there on punt returns, especially if they want to allow Shakir to focus on manning that slot position maybe a little bit more today, knowing that that's some area where the Bills could potentially have an advantage if they're getting the ball out quickly or trying to. But I actually think Hines is going to have more than 3 to 5 plays. I like him maybe for a couple series in this game, maybe 2 to 3 series. He gets some run, maybe in a little bit of 2-minute drill. Not sure how quickly he's been able to pick up in the playbook, but wouldn't mind seeing him if the Bills actually finally win a coin toss, let's say, and they defer to the second half and they've got a drive going there towards the end of the first half. Wouldn't mind seeing him in there in a little bit of a 2-minute drill situation as well. So not saying he's going to be in there all of that, but I do like him to play a little bit more than 3 to 5 plays.
Yeah, we got Chris Kepner coming in. Whenever the boss man is mentioned, we always got to bring up the boss man. He says, credit where it's due. Eric Turner was on Twitter Spaces this morning. Talked about watching for Diggs in the slot as a key today. Make sure you're heading on over. If you're on Twitter, if you're a Twitter person, make sure you're heading on over to the Cover One Twitter page every Friday morning and every Sunday before our pregame. They always have a Twitter space. Chris does a great job of setting it up, and Aaron's in there and a bunch of other Cover One guys are in there, and you're open to join as well into the conversation on Twitter Spaces. He thinks Diggs is gonna have a big day in the slot, or could be a key. Getting him matched up against Michael Carter, getting him matched up against Quan Alexander, all of those things could be a key for the Buffalo Bills to have some success today with Stephon Diggs and to get him away from guys like Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. Last but not least, special teams. The Bills obviously have Tyler Bass, Sam Martin, Reed Ferguson. It'll be really interesting to see who does the return duties today, whether it's McKenzie and Shakir, because they're just not comfortable with Hines yet, whether it's Hines doing both, whether it's Hines just doing punt returns. It'll be really interesting to see how the return game shakes out for the Buffalo Bills in a game with 2 very good defenses. Things like field position does matter, even though we're not too scared of the Jets offense. If they have good field position, they might be able to do something and score more points than we expect. They've got Greg Zuerlein, Braden Mann, so they have A decent special teams unit in terms of kicker and punter. Braden Mann's like not embarrassing, but he's also not good. And then you have Braxton Berrios, who is a very, very good return man who can get you big chunk plays in the return game. He was like the number one free agent that I wanted this offseason. I wanted him to be that slot guy for the Buffalo Bills. And
return man.
And he's a guy who can make a play today. And if it's a tight game because the defenses are playing so well, a big kick return could make the difference in today's game. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, and the Bills offense is able to put up enough points to comfortably beat this Jets team. But let's get to it now. As always, about half an hour till kickoff, we like to give our pregame superlative. So anyone who's seen the show, what's about to come up. We're going to give some predictions, some fun things that we think are going to happen in this game. And you guys are more than welcome in the comment section too to let us know who your pregame superlatives are for each of the different topics that we cover. And we'll read off some of yours as well. And our first one, as always, is the Take Me Higher player of the game. This is a star player for the Buffalo Bills, other than Josh Allen, who has to step up for the Bills to win.
Can you take me higher to a place where blind men see?
All right. So, Dave, who is your Take Me Higher player of the game?
Yeah, I'm going to go maybe what some people might think is a little outside the box with this one, but I think today's an Ed Oliver day. He's had some good games in his career against the Jets, and I think priority number one today is going to be stopping the run. And I know Daquan Jones has a big part in that, but Ed Oliver, not only in stopping the run, but, generating some pressure up the middle against Zach Wilson on passing downs as well. In what I think maybe is sort of maybe the weakest part of the Jets offensive line is that center right guard combination. So I'd like to see Ed Oliver getting into the mix, into the backfield, forcing some, not even necessarily forcing an interception, but maybe getting a sack fumble in this game, and then also holding his own and slowing down that Jets run game with Michael Carter and James Robinson. And Ed Oliver has been talked about a lot in Bills circles, but maybe again from the national stage has been a little bit underappreciated. So give me Ed Oliver today with a big game in the middle of that Bills defense, talking a lot about Quinnen Williams and that Jets interior.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Bills interior defensive line and Ed Oliver.
And Ed Oliver had himself a game. I think his one sack might have gotten taken away. I have to double check that from last week. But I mean, Chris Collinsworth pointed out in the first half of that football game, like Ed Oliver was taking over and he was dominating that Packers defensive line. And he was a huge part of the Packers struggling offensively early in that first half. Even Chris Collinsworth was willing to give him some dues. So you're doing well when Chris Collinsworth, and you're a Buffalo Bill, and Chris Collinsworth is willing to give you your due. I cheat a little bit because I'm a cheating McCheaterson, and I'm kind of going along the same lines as you. I just said the defensive line, just in general. I mean, there's so many studs along that defensive line, whether it's Von Miller or Gregory Rousseau or Ed Oliver or Jordan Phillips or Daquan Jones. There's so many studs there. They need to shut down the Jets run game. They need to sort of hone in and create a scatterbrain Zach Wilson, force him into 3 and outs, force him into turnovers. If they can do all of that, it's really not going to matter how many points we have to score because the Jets aren't going to score any, right? Like if you can shut down the run and rattle Zach Wilson, it's going to be hard pressed for the Jets to score any amount of points. And even if they do, getting turnovers will give the Bills positive field position against the Jets defense that is pretty darn good. And the Bills are probably going to have a handful against today. So field position matters. Forcing turnovers matters. So give me the defensive line as my Take Me Higher player of the game. But I really like Jay Davis and a couple of other people coming in and saying Tremaine Edmonds, because Tremaine Edmonds, whether it's stuffing the run or getting his hands up in the passing game, could have a huge impact sideline to sideline, stopping some of these end arounds and these yak type of plays. Tremaine Edmonds could have a huge impact, especially with Matt Milano out. So kudos to the people who had Tremaine Edmonds. I think Jay Davis was one of them. Next up is our wild card player of the game, a surprise player who could affect the outcome of this game.
Guys, why aren't the brakes working?
Because I cut the brakes! Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
So who's your wild card player of the game? We've already got someone coming in saying they think maybe Hamlin gets his, Pete Nana says maybe Hamlin gets his first interception today. Who's your wild card player of the game?
Oh man, I mean, there's 3 guys that I narrowed my list down to. It was Shakir, Bernard, and Hines. And I think I'm gonna go Shakir. I'm gonna agree with Charles G here. I think it's Shakir's time to shine, show that he's the guy. We talked a lot about Bernard and Hines. I think if Hines does get some touches, he's gonna have an impact. And I think Bernard will play well. It'll be interesting to see if they do send him at all. But to me, Shakir is the guy that needs to step up today as a wild card, because I think there's a lot of talk about Sauce Gardner on Diggs, and I know he's not going to shadow him. There hasn't really been a ton of talk about Gabe Davis, although I saw a few people this morning saying, hey, this feels like a Gabe Davis type of game. But Shakir maybe is his chance to kind of step out of this sort of 50-50 timeshare with McKenzie and really help the Bills in this quick passing game in an effort to kind of eliminate that Jets defensive front. So give me Shakir as a wild card today. We haven't heard a ton from him since that touchdown he had against Pittsburgh. So I like Shakir today to be a wild card factor in this game.
Yeah, a lot of good ones rolling in. Rantingly says a little dirty. Jay Davis, I like this one. Jaquan Johnson, especially if Zach Wilson's better against 2 high safeties than single high safeties. The Buffalo Bills can go single high and leave Jaquan by the line of scrimmage. Jaquan Johnson could have a huge impact on today's game. Eric Kinsey says, hey, how about James Cook? You know, we saw the Alvin Kamara trade rumors led to James Cook's best game. Now the Bills actually trade for a running back. Maybe James Cook's ready to just officially break out with all this motivation that he now has. Mr. Diggs says Kyrie Elam with 2 pick sixes. Jessica Tennis says Quentin Morris. Pops Mafia comes in with Devin Singletary. Ebb Tide says Shakir and Cook. I'm going to go with our man Roman Bo back. And I'm going to go with Terrell Bernard. I think he's going to be key to this football game, sideline to sideline, stopping these Jets runners and these Jets skill position guys from gaining chunk plays and bailing out Zach Wilson. Terrell Bernard was known as a blitzer in college, 17 total tackles, 2 sacks in his last start, the 2021 Sugar Bowl versus Ole Miss. He was named the MVP of that game, the first defensive MVP of that game since 2008. So I think Terrell Bernard, the lights go on for Bernard, and he has himself a big day for the Buffalo Bills, maybe pushing 10 tackles and a sack. That's my prediction for Terrell Bernard getting frisky. And Roy Collins getting frisky, saying AJ Epinesa, 2 sacks. I like that one as well. All right, on to our next one here. We're going to give the New York Jets a little bit of love with our Respect You player of the game, an opposing player the Bills need to respect in order to win.
I pure, straight hate you. But God damn it, do I respect you.
All right, Dave, who is your Respect You player of the game?
You know, I was going to initially say Quinnen Williams, but that seems like a fairly obvious one. He's going to be battling up against Mitch Morrison, Ryan Bates, obviously, and Saffold up the middle. But another guy in that defensive line for the Jets, and Carl Lawson, is a guy that I think we need to respect. I mean, when he was a free agent, there was a lot of chatter in Bill's community about going after a guy like Carl Lawson as far as big game hunting for an edge rusher. He's got 4 sacks already this year, 4 tackles for loss, 16 quarterback hits. So, around the edges, you know, Quesenberry's in for Spencer Brown. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a downgrade, but I am saying that Quesenberry probably is a little bit better of a run blocker than he is a pass blocker. So I think you got to respect Carl Lawson. Don't let the Jets give you negative plays early, especially take them out of situations where Carl Lawson's going to make an impact. And I agree with Charles there. Franklin Myers is also good. But I'm going to go with Carl Lawson on this one as a Respect You player for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen when the Bills have lost football games, pretty much the one common denominator is their offensive line gets dominated by the defensive front, and it throws off the entire offensive game plan. Quentin Williams in his own right has the ability to pull a Cam Hayward, pull a Chris Jones, pull a Jeffrey Simmons. We've seen those interior defensive linemen wreck Bills game plans before. Carl Lawson, John Franklin Myers, that whole defensive line is deep. You got to respect those guys. Some people came in and said DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner have to be respected. I know the Jets play a lot of zone, so I actually went away from those guys in my prediction as well. I actually like Jay Davis's matchup, or I'm sorry, not Jay Davis, but Jay Davis, the one who mentioned DJ Reed. I like DJ Reed's matchup on Gabriel Davis, even though he says Davis is not going to have it easy. I agree. I do like that mismatch in size. Gabe Davis is a much bigger guy at 6'3" to DJ Reed, who's like 5'9". So I do like that matchup for the Buffalo Bills today, even though DJ Reed is a very good player. I'm going with CJ Mosley. I think he's having a nice bounce back year. He's a very good linebacker. I think the Buffalo Bills have to be wise about pre-snap motion, moving guys left to right, jet sweeps, utilizing Isaiah McKenzie, utilizing their slot guy, moving guys around, misdirection. The Buffalo Bills got to have CJ Mosley thinking in this game, get him moving sideline to sideline so he can't go north and south. So I think doing the little things to try to take CJ Mosley out of this game is going to be really important for the Buffalo Bills. And Pops Mafia comes in. We get our Josh Allen pregame speech. Josh Allen always has a pregame speech. It's always good. Apparently his pregame speech this week was, rain or shine, it don't fucking matter, man. Just find a way to get the job done and play for each other. Let's go. Win on 3. 1, 2, 3, win. So Josh Allen always finds a way to get his team warmed up. So while Zach Wilson is going through the Rolodex of his opponent's mothers, Josh Allen is Zach Wilson spends at least 3 hours pregame just scrolling the social media of Bills opponents to see who's got the hottest mom that he could look out to in the stands. Josh Allen spends it motivating his teammates. So from that, we go from respecting the Jets. I just disrespected them with that little Zach Wilson job there, to our fire sale, our hottest take of the game. Let's get it rolling.
Oh my God! We're having a fire sale! Oh, the burning! It burns me! Evacuate all the school children! Oh, me! This isn't a fever! Sing, Greg! Can't even see where the knob is!
All right. What is your hottest take heading into this football game?
I think Nyheim Hines plays more than people are expecting. I think he becomes the 2-minute running back. I think he gets involved in the passing game as well, or that extension of the quick passing game. Nyheim Hines being involved in the passing game. And I'll say Nyheim Hines, hot take, 5 catches or more today out of the backfield or the slot. So I'm going pretty hot there, but as Jessica says, he's an NC State guy. I got to support my guy. And I'll say that he has 5+ catches today. Nyheim Hines splashing in a big way in his first game with the Bills.
Jessica Tennant says Groot has 3 cleanup sacks. Jay Davis, similar, says 3+ sacks on a poor injured Jets defensive line. Hey, Slick Mick89 says Jets with the upset. Roman Bobek says a hot take would be Zach Wilson playing halfway decent. I'm going to have Nyheim Hines as part of my hot take. Like I said, the last time that Josh Allen played a Robert Saleh defense that had any talent, it was 2020 in Glendale versus the San Francisco 49ers. Beasley went 9 for 130 and a touchdown. The Bills don't have that guy. So I'm going to say catching the ball out of the slot, Isaiah McKenzie, Khalil Shakir, and Nyheim Hines combined for 100+ yards and a touchdown. So they recreate what Cole Beasley did. The 3 of them it takes to recreate what Cole Beasley did. And they go for 100+ yards and a touchdown. TJ Varho comes in and says, Bills score less than 20. That's a hot take. We might only need 17 to win this football game, to be honest. Renee Williams comes in. She says, Dawson Knox, 2-touchdown game. Jay Davis says, no, it's a hot take. Bobby Hart gets a false start. I feel like the Bobby Hart shade's got to stop.
He'd have to get in the game, though.
Yeah. Oh, he comes in the game as like that extra blocker sometimes.
True.
Just the tip of canoe comes in and says we get a Mark Sanchez style butt fumble from Zach Wilson. And this one's not so hot of a take. The Jets defense is good. Yeah.
No, it is.
The Jets
good.
defense
It
is
is
good.
good.
I think he was making a follow up there to the Bills score less than 20 points.
Yeah.
But you know what's not good? The Jets offense. So the Bills could honestly score 14 points today and probably still win this football game. I might be a little too confident in saying that, but hey, let's get to it now. Final segment here, our game predictions.
We're sending you back to the future.
Back to the future! Back to the future! Back to the future! Back to the future! Back to the future!
Got a couple of hot takes that just came in while we were playing that. Pete Nana comes in and says the Bills have more scoring drives than the Jets have first downs. And Roy Collins thinks this game goes to overtime. This one's a real hot take. The Bills walk out without any injuries. Let's fingers crossed. Let's hope for that one. And Bobby Hart catches a touchdown. We're just getting wild now. All right. So, Dave, what is your game prediction? Paint a picture for us.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little of a battle early on in this game. I do think the Jets defense might have a little bit of early success against the Bills. I'm not sure that the Bills will come out and just like put up 14, 20 points as quickly maybe as some people hope they would. That Jets defense is very good. I do have a little bit of questions still on how well that offensive line is going to play today for the Bills against that really good Jets defensive front. But I think ultimately the Bills do grind their way to, pulling to a 2-score lead at some point in this game. Maybe it gets to a situation kind of in that, like we had in that Packers game, where you might feel a little bit of discomfort towards the end of the games. The Jets might be trying to do something. But again, this Jets offense is not the Packers, even though the Packers were down tons of receivers. They just don't have the horses to kind of really catch up to the Bills. And I do think the Bills ultimately pull away after a slugfest in the first half. The Bills kind of pull away in the second half. And I'm having a little bit of a weird score here. I'm going to say Bills 27, Jets 19. And maybe the score isn't quite as close as that seems, but I do think the Jets get over the 14 points and maybe get a late cheap score. So I'll say Bills 27, Jets 19.
Yeah, and you got to wonder too, because a couple people are predicting a blowout here. We got Bills Mafia STF 34-6. Mike H says Bills win by 30 as a prelude to beating them by 50 in Orchard Park. 31-14. I know Randy Harbin, when he was in the comment section earlier, said like the Bills aren't going to take their foot off the gas. How much of a wake-up call was that second half against the Packers? How much is Josh Allen taking those 2 picks personally? I think those type of things might need to be considered in this game prediction, because on paper, I expect the game to be close because I expect the Bills to have trouble with the Jets defense. But I can see that typical Josh Allen pissed off, offense pissed off, and they just come in laser focused and they don't take the foot off the gas for 3 quarters and just run it up. I can envision that happening. What do you think the chances are of that happening?
I mean, I do think that it's possible, but I also don't necessarily think that the Bills took their foot off the gas against Green Bay. I mean, they were still throwing it a ton and late in the third quarter. I think it was just like a combination of like trying to score more, but being a little bit careless with the football, right? So I don't necessarily think it was them taking the foot off the gas. I think it was just like decision-making and maybe carelessness was what cost them a potentially bigger victory. So maybe a little bit more of a concentration here for the Bills in the second half, and knowing that, like, look, we made some mistakes in trying to put that game away against Green Bay, even though we did put the game away. So, they correct that. And I think you're right. I think it's possible.
Yeah, Jay Davis comes in 27-17 Bills. It'll be a sloppy game. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a sloppy game. Roy Collins 30-20, Pete Nana 35-3. A couple other ones. Do we punt today? Dave?
Yeah,
I believe we punt today.
Yes.
Over under 3 punts.
Over 3 punts.
I will take the, what do they call it when you just take the 3? What do they call that?
Push.
I'll take the push. There we go. Brain freeze there. My prediction for this game, Bills 23, Jets 13. I think it's a game that is close, but does not feel close. I think the Bills control most of the game, but because of how good that Jets defense is, they do struggle to pull away. So I'm going Bills 23, Jets 13. Chris Kepner coming in 45-13 Bills. So almost going to wrap it up for us. We got about 7 or so minutes here, 10 or so minutes here. So a couple of things before we close out. Joe Biscaglia is reporting that Jaquan Johnson is lined up with the first team defense in team drills. Zach Moss is inactive for the Indianapolis Colts along with Jonathan Taylor today. So set your fantasy lineups accordingly for all you people hoping Zach Moss might get some run there with Jonathan Taylor out. It's funny. Nahi Hines comes here. His number is 20, which is Zach Moss's old number. Zach Moss goes to Indy. His number 21. Nahi Hines number with the Colts. So they swapped numbers there. Here's a good question that I saw a couple people debating back and forth about on Twitter. Over under 1.5 interceptions for Zach Wilson.
1.5 interceptions for Zach. I think I'll say over. I'll say he throws 2. I think the Bills' chances to get pressure with 4, and he is not good under pressure. I was just pulling up the numbers I pulled out of SIS earlier. 5 interceptions on only 59 pressure dropbacks for Zach Wilson. So the chances are pretty high that the Bills can get a pick or 2 if they can put pressure on him with 4, which I believe they can.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to take the over as well. I think they will get 2+ interceptions. Last one here for you. Do the Bills win the coin toss today?
No,
They get off the schneid here.
no.
It's like we're jinxed from the Kansas City playoff game. We just have not been able to win a coin toss.
Well, the only I could be wrong, but I believe they've only won the coin toss.
We won them all last year.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
We won one coin toss, I think, this year, and we actually chose to take the ball in that one. If I'm not mistaken, it was the wind or the game where we're supposed to be like, was it Tennessee? I can't remember. There was one game I think we won the toss and took the ball, but I think every other game we've lost the toss, and we may have lost every one. I don't know.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is now officially 10 minutes until kickoff. If you're looking to support Cover One, the number one thing you can do here is you can sign up for the Cover One Pass. It's essentially Cover One Insider, Cover One Premium. You get exclusive members only content. You get right there, it says around the graphic, a sexy official shirt and a decal. Can confirm it is a sexy shirt. You'll get scouting report, analytics. You'll get access on unlimited devices. You'll get access to our Cover One community and the Slack channel. We have some great conversations over there. And Eric and Anthony have been doing a great job of doing some like YouTube stuff, which is private to only Cover One Inside members. They answer your questions. They break down film with you. They do all that kind of fun stuff. So the Cover One Pass is the number one way you can support us here at Cover One. $57 a year. Head on over to cover1.football to sign up to be a Cover One Pass Club Access subscriber. And of course, if you just like this show, if you're just a big fan of this one, the Air Raid Hour pregame, the Air Raid Hour postgame, smash that like button for us on your way out, and always make sure to share. The number one way you can help us out is word of mouth by spreading the news of the Air Raid Hour, both pre and post game show, to the people. Hit that little copy share button, send it to somebody you know. And you can catch us again live tomorrow night, 9 p.m., where we break this whole thing down. Any final thoughts before we head out of here, Dave?
Well, I think this Jets team's going to be scrappy today. I am expecting a dogfight. I don't expect this to be a game where they roll over. I am, maybe I'm just setting myself up to kind of shield my own emotions in that regard. But I do expect a dogfight from the Jets. I think it's going to be a grinded out game, but I do like the Bills to eventually come out on top.
I do as well. So hopefully by the end of today, we are talking about the Bills going 7-1 for the first time since 1993, and the Buffalo Bills getting their first division win of the season. Ladies and gentlemen, kickoff's about to get underway in a couple of minutes, so go make sure you set your fantasy lineups, you get your food, you get your booze, you get your TV to the right station, CBS. It's the national game across most of the country. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Are we having fun yet?